For Paul or just for SK?
In general.
I think that SK Gaming can continue this strategy. It worked out well because even though they gave up the first blood and 2-1 kills favoring Pittsburgh Knights, they were invading the red buff consistently, still invading the blue buff against Deathwalker's Terra, which is difficult to really secure your own blue buffs. Adapting was consistently one level behind. So Neirumah put himself in a position to sacrifice experience to prevent adapting from getting the early game momentum. And that's surprising because a Bakasura that doesn't get ahead should stay behind. But when you have a Terra and then a Morrigan transforming into Terra, that enabled adapting in that late game to get that quadra kill.
Well, game 2, picks and bans on the way. Real quick, do we expect a Bakasura ban?
If anything, I'm banning Terra or picking Terra, probably.
Okay. Well, Pittsburgh Knights going to ban out the Naja. Right away, we see a Freya. I expect to see oftentimes Freya and King Arthur bans. Those are the two that I expect to kind of see as staple bans, not really changing anything. The other two, though, Naja is going to be pretty popular for now, but we'll see where the rest of the game changes. Right now, Pittsburgh Knights trying to figure out their secondary ban.
Probably take a page out of SK's book and ban away the X-Ball, but no, banning away the Fenrir. I'm a little surprised by that, considering that there's a lot of ways to deal with the Fenrir, and with addition to Bacchus as well, neither team actually banning away the Bacchus in the last game or picking it.
Yeah, just a couple of other options available. Artio, it's the first selection, kind of let SK off the hook of picking up the Bacchus. First pick after this SK second ban. I'd like to see a King Arthur ban. I don't think giving Deathwalker the king is a good choice, frankly.
I agree, but rumor mill says that SK Gaming want to play against Arthur. We'll see if they actually hold true to what they said behind the scenes.
Well, we have seen teams, specifically the console league, will allow a team to go ahead and play King Arthur, and then the strategy just becomes Camp the King. So we'll see if that's the way that's going to go. Shibalake will be the ban that SK decide on. So first pick over to Pittsburgh Knights. King Arthur is available. And as we've alluded to, certainly one of the stronger, if not the strongest character. Pittsburgh Knights will absolutely select him right on there. SK have the choice.
So there's a couple ways to deal with Arthur in the solo lane. It's not really a 1v1 matchup that is going to allow you to win against Arthur. It's more about global pressure and rotations. So if you have a Neith on your team, for example, throwing some World Weavers in that direction could be idea. Artio with a cripple, you eliminate 3 of his 6 non-ultimate abilities, and Morrigan could be an Artio as well.
The Morrigan picked up here for SK. Paul has it. I think that's likely where we're going to see in the middle lane, but definitely an ambiguous selection. Could wind up, I mean, we've seen jungle the Morrigan. We've seen the Morrigan in the solo lane. Seen a lot of different crazy things coming out with the Morrigan. But Pittsburgh Knights, Puch, Hachiman.
So in the past, Zapman has played magical ADCs. It wouldn't surprise me if he plays the Morrigan.
Okay.
He has played Nuwa before in the past whenever their team develops like this mid to late game strategy, sacrificing early game pressure. And also Morrigan has great pressure in the laning phase. So there could be one direction SK leans on.
Jing Wei. Always Always how that works, totally.
As I say that.
But although totally brings up a salient point, Jing Wei will be the selection for Mr. Zappis here in that hunter role. And I don't mind that if you look at the type of game Zap had in game number 1.
Yes.
Feed the hot hand.
Momentum is in his favor. I think that despite losing the last game, I think SK Gaming can still walk away happy knowing that there's things that worked. There's more things that worked for SK Gaming that didn't work. They just dropped the ball towards that late game.
As a player, because I know how I feel, but I'm looking in from the stands. As a player, totally, does that loss hurt more or less than a traditional one? You're owning the game, and then, man, well, you know what? We just lost that one team fight to Baka.
Yeah, that loss, it's almost like a neutral game, if anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that hurts them is the fact that the scoreline now is 1-0, so they're going to still have to win 3 games, so this gives Pittsburgh Knights only 2 games left to win. So SK Gaming going to have to play cleaner now, and that comes in the late game. SK Gaming very aggressive in the early game, the mid game. They just have to be more calculating about how they're going to confirm some of these objectives in the late game. And we mentioned about Morrigan from Zyrhoes in game number 1. That seemed to be the issue, because Paul was not having an easy time. Zapman didn't have an easy time in that late game. So when you don't have to worry about that Morrigan stealth coming in the back line, I think that's why SK Gaming opted for it so early.
Well, SK going to ban out 2 of the hyper carries in the jungle, Bakasura being one of them. The Knights looking towards that mid lane. Hebo, Habla. That'll be taken away from Paul. Conversation with the black and yellow right now to figure out their second and last ban. I think it should be another shot towards Paul.
Surprised they ban away the Hebo, knowing that Morrigan and Jing locked in together, unless they're expecting some weird shenanigans where Morrigan's in the solo lane.
Or even the jungle.
That too. I don't know if that's in Sam's arsenal. It would be a surprise to me for sure if SK Gaming played Morrigan anywhere outside of mid.
Same. And you know what? That's what this large conversation is here for the Knights, because I think that you don't take the chance with Hebo. Paul's Hebo, just like Adapting's Bakasura arguably won the game for Pittsburgh, Paul's Hebo can and will do the same thing. So if there's a 5% chance that Morrigan is going elsewhere, I'm banning the Hebo just in case. This conversation from PK right now, I think is, well, it's probably Paul. Is there anything else we have to really worry about?
Maybe some solo lanes, knowing
like
that
that
Arthur's already locked in for PK. So the Robin, yeah, Sanford Soccer was really annoying. And when Zyrhoes had the opportunity to transform into the Robin, that was a nuisance. So if you give double Robin to SK Gaming, I don't think Zyrhoes would be having a great time on this Puch. Great ban of the Robin.
Daji is a fantastic choice for SK, though. The character can walk down Puch, certainly do a lot of damage there, and as soon as the real big damage comes up on the Powwow, she goes. King Arthur's going to get pulled in.
Yes.
Hachiman has a CC immune ult, so there's that.
I'm a little surprised that pick wasn't a Circuit, honestly, because 2 last breaths against Arthur, easy kills every single time. Deathwalker would not have an easy game whatsoever. Also, diving the backline onto Zyrhoes' Puch.
I love this. I would love to see this choice, because I think this is something that escapes a lot of lower-end players and our fans at home. Arachne is absurd. She is a fantastic character in the early game. Right now, we saw how active the game was early on with the invade going on. You can't 1v1 her. And we're going to see Adapting pilot the Arachne. This is a character that I've been wanting to see on the big league stage for a long time now, and I'm excited to see Kenneth bring it out.
One of the strongest level 1 gods, but look at this last Vulcan pick out of SK Gaming. This leads me to believe that Morrigan actually will be played in that solo lane.
Yeah, certainly looks like it. Daji in the jungle, Artio in the support role, and this is Neirumah. This is Neirumah. We're going to see the Morrigan support. That's what we're going to see.
It could go either way.
We're going to see the Morrigan support. I will. What do you want to bet, Tully? What do you want to bet?
Well, you know what? If it is Morrigan and Jing, they're not losing lane pressure. But if you're doing the same strategy of level 1 invading, I would rather have an Artio there than a Morrigan. So it just depends on how SK want to open up.
That's certainly a big thought process to think about that. So SK Gaming, they're going up against King Arthur, and the Arachne is going to be a big presence. But they've got a number of choices.
Yeah.
Is this where we tie it up, or is PK going to bring it to us?
So I gave it to PK in the last game. I still think SK Gaming's going to win this set, and I think that this is their time to start bouncing back into the set, only because of the Morrigan.
Sure.
I think that the combination of double dodges, also double, or maybe an Arthur for their own right, this is not going to be an easy game for PK whatsoever. The ball is in SK's court, I think.
I believe so, especially after watching game number 1. I mean, SK Gaming looked absolutely fantastic. It was up to Pittsburgh Knights at the last second to really bring out the team fight and bring home the victory. SK Gaming, I think, can continue what they started in game number 1, and we'll see if that happens. Hindu and Aggro, take us away.
Thanks so much, gentlemen, on the desk. Yeah, Knights did take game 1. Game 2 about to begin, and the question was, where was that Morrigan going? It will be the solo lane for Belair.
Tully, you said it. I'm going to say it on air. Tully should have bet some chest hair waxing that
That'd have been so good, right?
that it was going solo.
That's what I thought about straight away.
He had it.
Now, couple of things about this. Obviously, the best thing for you guys at home is welcome to your new meta, which you don't know what the meta is. You all thought, Arthur was strong, but he is. He's still going to get first pick. But then Arachne's in there. Puch still exists. Hachiman is back amongst the fray too. And then the Morrigan solo lane. So we're seeing a lot of sporadicness. Why Morrigan solo, though?
They were so scared of Zyrhoes getting it. I really think that's the whole reason. Look, this Neil, even with Arachne, is running at this speed buff.
It's Arachne.
I am shocked that he's willing to put himself in this position, and that Adapting's not just going to say, Okay, we'll kill you.
I
Does
guess
he not have
delays.
web?
Well, it does appear to be delays is the focus on Neirumah here. That's all his job
Yeah,
is.
that's the whole job.
Try and spend as much time as he can. Does have a horrific emblem too, so he can slow them down if he gets pressured a little bit. Meanwhile, in the jungle, blue buff invade going on there by Deathwalker. At the same time, should I say Belair on that side of Neirumah is under a lot of pressure by those little baby spiders that are doing work. Not enough for a kill yet. Left-hand side, we've got action everywhere at the start.
Sam for Soccer's at this purple buff to try and save it for Zapman, but with Hachiman Sylvanus, I don't think you should feel too comfortable in this position, even with Sam hitting level 2.
Oh, really threading those basics through. Nicely into Zap there, but the sustain from the potions coming into play. Multi and health potions online ticking away there. And now with the turnaround, his abilities on cooldown, Sam and Zap get aggressive. And the cuts of 1,000 pieces coming into play from Zap.
That's still only level 1, so he really can't play too aggressively there. At least with Sam's presence and hitting level 2, they get the purple and they force the shell, and now Neil's here.
Yeah, Neirumah rotating around the back, still only level 1, however, but stunned in place is EmilZy, and the focus is on the tree. It will fall down in the lane. Adapted has made the rotation to secure purple for the Knights in response, though, but SK off to an early lead yet again.
Just like I said in Game 1, so much of this strategy for SK, and the reason why it works is because SK is very good at predicting where you're going to try and beat them with it. They've clearly practiced this enough to where they're seeing what the natural responses are and how they can beat it. This time Sam goes from speed to red to his own purple instead of heading towards the enemy red buff as he did in Game 1, because Vote and EmilZy have pressure in duo, and that keeps them off purple. It keeps them there. It stops them from farming. And that's the name of this whole strategy. It isn't killing you at your speed. It isn't even taking the speed. It's just stopping you from doing it. If you can't do it, then you're not getting farm. And even if Neil isn't getting any farm, the rest of his team is.
In the solo lane, we mentioned the Morrigan up against the King Arthur matchup. At the moment, Deathwalker hit under his tower a little bit, but the range poke from Belair is the real issue here. As you can see, being able to use the cone damage as well, and the boost of that is giving him pressure, allowed him to even keep the coup under pressure as well.
That's one thing that doesn't really get talked about a lot with Totem of Coup and these ranged characters. You don't see them as much in solo because so many warriors, but Belair can still be soaking minion XP and clearing coup at the same time. That's something Morrigan does better than anybody else because of the auto attack chain as well. This Morrigan pick, I'm still convinced, is exclusively to keep it out of Zyrhoes' hands at nearly any cost. But I kind of like it here, as long as he doesn't end up falling too far behind in this lane. And Deathwalker, as soon as he hits level 5, can start playing much more aggressively. But as long as he stays okay, then he's going to bring a lot to these team fights. He can be tanky when he needs to be. He can deal damage.
Is it going to be more of a tankier Belair we see on this Morrigan this game? I mean, look at the comp they've put together here. They do need another frontliner with them, I would say. Is he going to be someone that maybe like builds tanky and transforms into maybe the Arthur, maybe even the the Sylvanus if need be?
I think it might be transforming into the Opwash.
Left-hand side, looking for some pressure, looking towards EmilZy. Help from Vote there to try and slow down the aggression, and the sustain comes through. But even with the buff to Wisps, it's not going to be enough to keep EmilZy alive. Another kill for SK. They're up 2-0.
And well timed because buff spawned on this left side of the map, but with rotation in from Adapting and Zyrhoes, that's enough to force SK off of red and purple, but really punishing this Sylvanus early on. And now the downside of the start that SK usually does, which is that Neil is further behind than the enemy Guardian, isn't a problem, because now he's ahead because EmilZy's died twice.
And it's always the pressure to try and get the Guardians in the early game before they get a couple of the base items online. Generally reinforced Greaves, maybe a bit of health here or there on the next item, or at least it's starting. And that's when you're looking to pick them before the level 5. In the jungle, the mighty jungle Deathwalker will swing Excalibur around for now towards Belair's face. Belair really not enjoying this, looking to really hold on to his ultimate if he can, but I thought he was going to have to use it there, but in the end, recognizing how much the Deathwalker could do.
Yeah, that's King Arthur for you. You just kind of walk him down and kill him, and Belair just teleported back in, so he's got to go back to base and hoof it all the way back towards solo lane. And like I said, as soon as he hits level 5, as soon as he gets Glad Shield, Deathwalker all of a sudden has complete control of that fight. Good patience there by Morrigan to hold on to that ultimate and not use it in that position, but I don't know how much longer he's going to have that option. Deathwalker's going to get Warrior Tabi and be very, very aggressive pretty soon.
Paul's already got his Book of Toth online, went for the full stack top at the beginning of the game. Once again, those Zyrhoes invest into the Mage's Blessing, then boots as well. No real surprise seeing the quick boots coming out from an Alfwash player. You want that mobility because you don't really have much of an escape.
No, you're standing your ground and fighting one way or the other, and someone is dying every single time. And I like the Mage's Blessing here, less for the CDR that I liked it on for the Morrigan, and more for the mana sustain. Opwash, an incredibly mana-hungry character, getting that extra MP5 when your mana's low, which it always is because you're playing Opwash, it lets you stay on the map much longer.
Red invade from SK coming up here. The ward coverage on this left-hand side from SK is monumental right now. There's like 7 wards down on the map. But Knights show their face and look to defend their red buff. Don't think they're going to get a chance to do that, though, because over the wall, I think that meatball was enough from Paul to secure.
They knew that Deathwalker was missing from the solo lane. That means that he could be here to affect the fight, and the last thing you want to do is fight at King Arthur at this point in the game.
Purple buff reset as Neirumah gets aggressive, adapting to Sam trading in the jungle. Sam under a bit of pressure, but rotates towards Zapman with a good knock-up onto adapting that wasn't expecting the bleed. Will be enough from Daji to get a kill and put SK up 3-0, and on top of that, a cheeky purple.
That is perfect. Zap really playing on point. Just perfect knock-up that guarantees enough damage can come through from Sam before that ultimate ever gets a chance to be used.
Nice little combo from Paul there onto the Artio. Just a full combo too, which is the meatball into the the turret and the backfire for the extra damage. Belair looking to pressure Deathwalker, and Deathwalker says, "You what, mate? I've got a big sword." Not enough for a kill yet, but Belair's still taking the fight.
One day he'll be able to hit the stun. Finally, he gets to go off without interruption. Now he's going to transform into the Daji. He knows Deathwalker has no CC immunity. He's going to pull him in.
And straight after the fact, Sam's there for the chops too.
Oh, hello.
But still, Belair needs some help here. The second Palau's going to be enough to bring him down. But now Sam and Belair have used pretty much everything. And Adapted and EmilZy are here to turn it around.
Beautiful pull from EmilZy. Belair might still be out of danger. Indeed he is. Just enough movement speed in order to get himself out of that fight. But a great turnaround in EmilZy's rotation. Well timed. That was pure instincts, I feel like. There's not a whole lot of reason to be over there at that point in the game as a support. Just knowing the Deathwalker and Belair are starting to brawl. If that's happening, if Belair's being aggressive in this lane, that probably means Sam's coming over. So why don't I head over and see if I can help out?
To be fair, Deathwalker bought enough time for that rotation to come through too. Yeah. EmilZy probably was around the mid area, realizing there's no jungle buffs up, there's nothing to clear in terms of camps. Oh, he's getting gagged? I'll go and try and support, like a good support will do.
That's exactly right, and ends up paying off by getting Pittsburgh Knights on the board, especially when you hand it over to Adapting at the same time. That's perfect.
Surprised by EmilZy going for the Lotus Crown so early. Yes, it's really good on the supports and should be picked up if you can find it. But sometimes if you get a bit further behind, it's a little bit risky to do that. You want that extra health that Lotus Crown doesn't really give you, just the straight protections.
No, it doesn't, but I think EmilZy's still okay with being focused in the early game. If SK is dumping everything into this Sylvanus, even though we've seen how easily they can kill him in the earlier game, he's still getting points in that Wisp now. His one should be pretty much maxed. He's going to be getting more and more physical protection as he's leveling up those Wisps, and so you end up getting a lot tankier really quickly as Sylvanus at this point in the game, whereas in the early game you're much squishier. So I've got no problem with this Lotus Crown. It's such a big payoff, and especially against a physical dot character like Daji, it makes all of those dots stay not doing much damage for a much longer period of time.
Only on a 1,500 gold advantage for SK at the moment as we approach the 10-minute mark now. With how the game's gone so far, it's continued from game one, realistically. Pressure from SK, answers back from the Knights. Ultimately, though, game one went the way of Knights because they counter-attacked at the right time and found the win. It could be a similar story here if it continues that way.
Looks like Adapting's really not a fan of boots so far. He didn't go any boots in game one. He went a bunch of katanas on Bakasura, fairly popular build on that character, but it looks like he's emulating that same thing on Arachne this time around. The Golden Blade is there because sometimes you can juke in between the minions and end up slipping out of her grasp a little bit. It also means that she doesn't have to worry about using a lot of mana in order to clear. She can run around and just use her auto attacks to clear pretty often. But it's there for movement speed and cheap power as well.
I mentioned the red buff invade moments ago and how much ward coverage they have. That ward coverage is still solid for SK, and because of that, they find a window for a free Gold Fury, uncontested by the Knights there, not aware of it or in a position to defend.
SK looking very good so far. Despite the game one loss, I think that they should be pretty encouraged with how well they played. The same thing can be said for Pittsburgh Knights. These two teams are operating at a high level.
Let's put it this way, SK are very objective-focused, I would say, in how they've started out the season so far, and that's a good thing for North American players and teams, because it's been something that's been a crutch or an issue for some of them through the seasons.
Sam gonna go in on the Deathwalker. He knows that ultimate's down, but it's a 20-second cooldown. You don't got a lot of time in order to punish him for that, and with Adapting coming over as well, that's enough to make SK concede the Totem of Coup, which has been pretty even so far, 4-3 in favor of the Pittsburgh Knights. So only a 25 gold net gain over what SK has gotten.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, the Knights can go, hey, we got 25 gold more than them, right?
That's right.
Solo lane and one lane. Do you win lane if you get more coups now over the tower? Does that change things in the solo lane?
That's a good question. That's
So if you get like 9 totems a coup and you lose your tower, can you go, well, I technically won lane?
I would rather have my solo laner get me 9 totems of coup because I want the mana in mid.
Greedy boy.
Yeah, of course. And every time I don't get it, I go, coup! Like, and I shake my hand into the air and
As you hit,
curse their
it's
name.
when you hear that noise, right? The drums beat, and then
I
you
know.
look at your tower and you go,
I got it!
or you're like, oh, they got it? Great.
Yeah.
Now they get free sustain. Thanks, solo laner. You were useless before, and now you're even more useless now.
Wow, I was going to be toxic, and you somehow managed to out-toxic me.
Me? Toxic? Never.
No.
Sam for Soccer, on the other hand, may be toxic if he can be towards the vote, but the problem
Sam's
is,
a nice guy.
there is a ward that he stood on right now, so he's going to relieve a bit of that pressure and keep vote staying where he was. He was trying to keep Sam busy over there as long as possible, and EmilZy was sneaking up for support if required. Belair versus Deathwalker, also still going on around the top. McHugh as EmilZy's trying to keep Neirumah busy, pulls him in. Neil will transform into the bear, but it's all about the red buff.
That goes down in favor of SK very, very quickly, and Neil is out of there. No one even picks up the red buff. They're more concerned about getting the golden experience and walking away. That's good discipline by SK.
I think that's something that started towards the end of last season, but continuing here, the red buff invades. It's the focus point for both teams in the jungle. It's one of the most opportune buffs to really take and cause a problem. An interesting part of the map.
It's a high-value buff, much like speed buff, but it's so much easier to invade because of the positioning on the map. Speed buff is so tucked away that it's very difficult to get to it and get out, whereas red buff doesn't have that exact same problem. Plus, you get a chance to invade red. If they fight you and it goes poorly for them, maybe you get a purple buff, maybe you get a gold fury. All of those buffs being on that side of the map, the left side where Gold Fury is, the earlier game objective in comparison to Fire Giant or Pyromancer, which doesn't even spawn until 10 minutes. It's the fact that there's 2 buffs that are easily invadable there, all contribute to why we see so much pressure on the left side of the map.
This is very pretty gameplay from SK Gaming right now, although this is very interesting indeed. A 13-minute Fire Giant, all 5 members on the same page, and it's only the king himself, Deathwalker, to try and stop it, but with an Artio, all he can do is watch as the Fire Giant is slain. And SK Gaming have gone unpunished so far.
SK gonna just try and bail out. They need to try and bail out, but Belair doesn't look like he wants to. He's got a pull coming on a Deathwalker.
And pulls him straight back in. The rest of the squad on the way, dodging up again for Sam for Soccer, and then again for Deathwalker to the chains, and he will fall. Paul takes his life. Everyone's still alive on SK, outside of Belair, who did pay for the aggression.
It's the right idea, but no, you know what? I don't think it is the right idea.
It's too early, right?
You get a Fire Giant, you took a little bit of damage, you're fairly low on mana, you just used the ultimate on Paul. That's not the right time to fight. You should bail in that position. Belair gets a good ultimate, sure, but that just baits SK into continuing to fight. And even though it only ends up going 1-for-1, that's one player who had a Fire Giant for a player who didn't have a Fire Giant. And so I think Pittsburgh Knights should be fairly okay with that trade. The only thing that I think puts SK on even footing with that trade is that they got Deathwalker's beads, which, by the way, a little late on the purification bead, still got yanked right away on that pull coming from Sam for Soccer or Belair, whichever one it was. So now if they can capitalize on this and punish Deathwalker for not having beads in the next 100 seconds, then I think SK comes out net positive.
We had a lot of talk to EmilZy in the preseason about what he expects from this Knights team and how much a change it's going to need to try and, come together as a team, so to speak. Work out the communication, work out the shot calling. And at the moment, it looks like SK are giving him a good battle to try and test out how that's working for them so far. Sure, they won game 1, but it wasn't a stomp by any stretch of the imagination.
No, a very close game 1. And it looks like Pittsburgh Knights are content to play a longer game. They played that way in game 1. They're playing it here again in game 2. Look at the player damage for adapting. He's all the way at the bottom. They seem to really want to farm this up.
It's already down below half health, and again, Knights not in a position to contest. That is a Gold Fury, a Pyromancer, a Fire Giant, and then a Fury on top of that in favor of SK Gaming so far. They are really controlling these contestable objectives.
You called SK objective focus, and I think that's exactly what we've seen from them. They've really just looking at red buffs, looking at not really fighting you unless they have to. It's just in order to get you out of the way so that they can take your farm and take the objectives in the end game. And it's really, really paying off for them. I mean, this is a substantial lead now. 5,000 gold at 15 minutes is a lot that you have to battle back from.
And with that, you can see the Fire Giant on 4 members still of SK Gaming, starting to group up on the left-hand side. They get the tier 1, but a defense from Knights is mounting around the tier 2. Trying to clear out the minion wave and force SK to attack at this stage is a good idea, because those towers will hurt with the front line being a little bit less than stellar in terms of tankiness at this point in time.
And the damage really isn't there for SK either. They don't have a lot of damage that can really insta-kill these at Belair immediately.
Use the dodge, EmilZy to the backline to try and slow this down. Ultimate from the Earthshaker didn't really do much, but then Sam goes in looking for Zyrhoes and finds him. No panic from Zyrhoes and a great pull from EmilZy!
And Sam's going to be the first one out the door. Adapting's here and could continue this chase if he wants to, especially those webs being left by Zapman.
Well then.
But such a weird engage. Belair goes in really early and tries to get that pull, and he gets a couple relics. He gets Zyrhoes, beads, everything like that. But then Paul uses the ultimate way too early. That needs to be there in order to follow up off of Sam's Blink ultimate that was coming next.
It's the team fights that they're struggling in, clearly. The siege didn't work out there whatsoever. Like we said, 4 members had the Fire Giant there. They could have slowly tried to whittle them down, but Knights' defense, they were strong. They felt they could defend the tier 2, and they were correct. The tier 2 defense was good, and it's kind of slowed down that Fire Giant from being able to get them really anything else here.
Definitely. I wonder if the tier 1 tower in mid is the better call there for SK. It doesn't give you nearly as much of a reward as getting a tier 2 would have.
I think you're right.
But it's more guaranteed gold, and that's what they really need, because as I said, 5,000 gold's a lot, but it's not insurmountable. And so SK's Fire Giant is already off of them. What do they get off of it? They got an Oni Fury and they got a tier 1 tower and left. That's not enough in order to really push themselves in a commanding position.
And I think the way you look at that is it's a 5k lead, sure, but that 5k lead is divided by 5 players, so it's only 1,000 gold. And most items at this stage, you're looking to invest 2,500 easy, right?
Right.
So it's not even a full 2,500 item that you're in the lead by, about half of that. So it's not as much as you think at that stage. You're right. I think they had the pressure in mid. They also had pressure in Geo. They could have looked for a bit more in mid there. But the window has now gone. The Fire Giant is due to spawn again, as is the Pyromancer, and SK Gaming already setting up shop around it.
Another really early Soul Reaver. Well, the last one wasn't early. It was just on a character that I didn't expect to see it on in the Terra. This time it's early on Zyrhoes. I feel like they're still in Season 5 a little bit. You wouldn't build chin size this early, and that's kind of where my mind is at.
Sam gonna go up, use the
Great
Paolo,
pull.
get Zyrhoes, brings him in. No beads from him, but the Aegis was there. There's the crypts that have been emptied, and Zyrhoes will get the kill on Sam. Paul did use the Earthshaker, but didn't find a target there. After the fact, Belair transforms into Sam and uses the Paolo, but that didn't buy anything for them whatsoever either.
Again, it's they're juggling aggro onto Zyrhoes. That's who they have to kill every fight. And Paul's ultimate is just mistimed the last 2 fights, and so because of that, Pittsburgh Knights get to walk away from that team fight up a member. Sam's there to sacrifice himself if necessary. As long as they kill Zyrhoes, it's worth it. He's the mage. He's going to put out all the AoE damage that Pittsburgh Knights has, and for him to sacrifice himself and end up falling in the end is a big loss.
A little bit worried by SK and how they've taken these team fights though, because it's time and time again, it's dodge-eel and dodge-eel, and that's all it's been on cooldown. They need to maybe try and switch things up, throw people for a loop a little bit. At the moment, this play isn't working. Like, they've shown it, and they keep doing it, and Knights have responded in kind.
Well, I think that the 2 dodge ults have worked. Belair and Sam for Soccer have been hitting the ults on the right targets, and it's been working for them. It's just that Paul's follow-up has not been correct. And that's the easiest part of the combo to fix.
Well, this time, Knights are here for the Fire Giant defense, but the Fire Giant's at half health already. Zyrhoes and Dumps on the left-hand side, Deathwalker and EmilZy, the tanks frontlining, trying to slow them down. Fire Giant's been reset momentarily. Finally, it's gone down. His Deathwalker still pressuring, but eats a lot more than bargain for Belair, credited with the kill. 4 members surrounded by Deathwalker there, and Vote is getting a bit of split push on, so it's not doom and gloom.
And all of SK is far too low at this point to actually go for Fire Giant. So if Vote can get a tier 2 in this position, that's a really good idea. But with Zapman's Rapid Reincarnation passive, you're not going to be able to get that too easily.
And I agree with what you said about the dodge ults being good, sure, but it's the telegraphed engagements. That's what I look at, where I'm like, well, every time they go for an engagement, you know it's a power out, so you already know we're fighting now. If they can switch it up, maybe, I don't know, maybe have the blink in from Neirumah instead to initiate the fight once or twice, maybe that will help them out a little bit more. But there's also the problem with, if Morrigan's just going to transfer into Dargy every single time, why not all just get a Magi's Cloak?
Well,
right?
that's exactly
and
what
eliminates them.
Adapting did. He got third item, Magi's. Magi's could be the call for EmilZy next. Another Fury goes down. That one was the Primal Fury. So next time SK goes to try and rush this Fire Giant down,
A little bit quicker.
it'll be a little bit quicker, 5%. But when it seems so low, and it's getting a buff pretty soon. But when you remember that if everyone's there, you're doing a lot more damage to that. You're doing 25% more damage to that Fire Giant. That's a big boost.
I'm so proud of your calculations then. You did 5 times 5.
What can I say?
Good job.
Last game I did
what
all the
about
total.
when it gets buffed again? What is it then?
That would be 35%.
Good job!
I remember on
proud of you.
multiplication tables.
We got there. 21 minutes in though, 1 Fire Giant down. The next Fire Giant, if it gets past 25 minutes, we do get the enhanced version up.
And that's much harder to take down, even if you have the Primal Fury. But it won't hurt you. Did you guys have Mad Minutes in England? That's what we called them in elementary school, when you had to fill out a multiplication table in a minute.
The differences between me and you, Ryan, is that I had a chalkboard when I went to school.
I had a chalkboard.
You did? Yeah. It just like science, probably.
No, it was places.
Okay. EmilZy did get a Magi's Cloak, funny enough. I just saw that pop there, and I think that's what's going to be the game plan now from SK. If we do see more Magi's Cloaks come
It's
through,
Neil's job.
It's burn those as quick as possible so these parallels can cause problems.
Maybe Paul with a stray meatball can pop one as well, but that is definitely going to be the call. I'm a little surprised that Deathwalker goes high to the Urchin instead of a Magi's, but I guess with Purification Beads, he doesn't want to double down into that CC immunity. He really needs to still be tanky enough to withstand the front line even when he doesn't get pulled.
I do like the fact that he's investing more in it, though, because he did it before Deathwalker, game 1 on the Terror. It seems like he really does like the Hide of the Urchin. I mean, Hide of the Urchin's always been the item that's been relevant once it gets full built and gets the stacks online, even with its changes to a shield now, so to speak. It's very, very impactful if you can find the stacks.
SK's hovering. They still want this Fire Giant. I'm a little surprised they haven't grouped up and tried to push this tier 1 in mid, just to get more map pressure, just to take away an option for Pittsburgh Knights, and just do what Pittsburgh Knights did in game 1, which is all of a sudden have that win a team fight, couple less objectives that we have to worry about, and now we can end the game because of it.
Really feels like both teams have kind of gone to their own strengths, of SK being... NA's always been a little bit fight-heavy, EU's always been a little bit more tactical, farm, focus on objectives, but SK stole all the objectives so far. It's just been 1 or 2 small mistakes that Knights exploit. And they've been very good at the exploitation of the mistakes SK have made. And it looks by the player cams that definitely Knights are still chilling. They don't seem like too stressed about it at the moment. They're just focusing on the farm, focusing the zone.
No reason to panic at this point because SK has really slowed it down, and that's allowed Pittsburgh Knights to get towards the late game with their itemization and their XP. Level 20s on Vote and Adapting. Zyrhoes right behind them at level 19, so it won't be long now.
Pyromancer a contest going on right now. Not the most valuable thing on the map, but it will still have a bit of a fight over it. Deathwalker surrounded. Pyromancer finally reset. Neirumah gets knocked up by the ult from EmilZy. Earthshaker's going to hit 2. Forces the Aegis out of Vote, and EmilZy eats a nice chunk, but not enough to bring him down just yet. Back in the fight, though, Adapting is starting to arrive.
Paul's got both relics, and he's going to need them both, but Vote takes down Neirumah. Adapting's up on the web, but it doesn't matter because everyone on SK is down in the ground. 4 for 0. Pittsburgh Knights make it look easy.
And we were just saying about they've been waiting for these opportunities, but it's Zapman now against the whole squad of the Knights. Fire Giant low, 20%. Looking for picks. His dig over the steal. Won't find it. Will get away for now, but I think he may still fall. Zap's going to run as fast as his little Jing legs can take him, because Arachne's got 8.
Man, that was close. Zapman nearly got it. Look at that team fight recap. Knights just really put the gas on, and it's because of their great target switching. Neirumah goes too far forward right away. He ends up taking the brunt of 3 members of Pittsburgh Knights. EmilZy pulls him back in, and that makes the rest of SK need to commit, because otherwise Neil's dying for free and they might lose fire because of it. So SK surges forward, and that's exactly when Adapting comes around the side. It's when Zyrhoes drops the ultimate as soon as all of SK starts coming towards them, and it ends up being a very easy team fight because it's just one after the other that Pittsburgh Knights are able to dismantle.
So with that, it's the first Fire Giant Pittsburgh Knights have got. It's not an enhanced one, though. So if you're an SK fan, you're not too worried just yet about these objectives going down too quick, specifically the Phoenixes. But what can Knights battle back in? They've got a gold lead. Is it focus on the towers or is it focus on the Gold Furies at this point? Or the Furies in general?
Why not both? You can. If I'm the Knights, I'm really prioritizing this Oni Fury because then I want to all in a lane and force SK to really stay there and defend it and let my Oni waves do the dirty work for me on the side lane. So I think I would have maybe tried to get tier 1 in mid and then gone to Oni, but this strategy of let's just wait around and go Oni right away is also totally fine. And that's why SK, if this were a Gold Fury, I don't think SK would be defending this. It's because they know that their map is going to be split so easily with an Oni Fury that they're here and ready to defend.
Deathwalker on this King Arthur involved in every kill the Knights have got, which shows that SK and Knights have been battling around him the entire time. A lot of Palos in his direction too. As we mentioned, no Magi's Cloak used. And I actually don't mind that as the King Arthur because it just means he's the target they're going to go for. And he's like, okay, that's all right. I'm a tank. I don't mind you wasting your ultimates on me because that's kind of my duty if I can make it happen.
Especially now that he's got 4 High to the Urchin stacks. He got all 4 in that last fight, and that's a big difference in tankiness. SK decides that maybe we shouldn't go for this. Probably took stock of their relics, that Paul had no relics, Zap had no relics, Sam had no relics. You just don't want to take a fight in that position when your carries are that vulnerable.
Now Zapman does have his Aegis coming up in about 15 seconds. Does SK try and defend this tier 2?
No, it's already half health, and Sam's on the right-hand side. If you're going to defend a tier 2, it's going to be the one in mid lane. I don't think this is the one to do it on.
Well, the whole squad is over on the left now, and with the rotation of Sam, it looks like they're setting up for something. Keep an eye on Belair. He's playing the Morrigan, who's wrapping around the back. Sneaky, sneaky, catchy monkey, looking for a target. Here comes the stealth. EmilZy. Magi's Cloak down, eats the Earthshaker, not enough for a kill. Belair's looking for a target, can't find one. Instead, transforms 2 Palos in the sky.
At the same time, that means 1 CC immunity gets you away from both. Ripped to 1. Deathwalker now going to get ripped back yet again, but Sam for Soccer has been left in a bad spot. Good Trickster Spirit, but not enough.
With adapting and the blink. Vote gets a kill. Killing spree for him. Adapting's still alive for now. Airstrike comes out from Zap. Didn't find Adapting, who juked it away. And now Zap under pressure too. The pull from EmilZy at max range connects. And we could be going to game 3 off this push.
Man, Pittsburgh Knights are just lying in wait so well. And as soon as SK make one mistake, SK played the first 24 minutes of that game nearly flawlessly. And then they mess up once, and they're going to lose.
They are getting beat by individual mechanical skill, which is one thing that everyone's been saying about the Knights is what they've got. SK have the teamwork, but Knights, they're the ones finding the victories. 2-0, 12-6 in under 28 minutes.
I think the Pittsburgh Knights might be a really good Smite team.
No, really?
Yeah, I've got a good feeling about this squad. Something's telling me
I think the big thing
they're going to have a good year.
About this team is everybody looks at it and goes, yeah, absolute quality players. Amazing quality on this Knights team. But can they get their synergy down? The communication level needs to be there. At the moment, it's like ranked games for them, but they've got to keep the synergy going as time goes on. SK, meanwhile, they're doing the right things.
I think so too. And if you go back and watch that game, and if Paul just has better ult timing on the 2 fights back-to-back, where Zyrhoes was the target, and he got pulled in, and there wasn't any follow-up because Paul's ultimate was premature, I think SK may win that game. It really is that. I mean, you cannot make that mistake twice in a row. If you do, you'll end up getting punished for it. And I think that's what happened. That sucks to lose a game when you feel like we could have won it so easily. But that's a really easy fix through not only the rest of the year, but even this set. So I don't think SK fans should be really upset about that game. It was that close. It's just you can't mess up that many times.
And that's going to be the biggest problem. 2 games down, potentially 3 more to come. We'll find out. But first of all, let's go to the desk.
Pittsburgh Knights win. That's what's going on here. And a surprise, kind of, for the 2nd game in a row. You know, Aggro says there, if you're an SK fan, don't be too upset. That's what I said game number 1. But you got to win the games,
I'm more
boys.
upset about this loss than I was in the game number 1 loss. I think that they're too ambitious about forcing the fights around Fire Giant instead of just controlling vision and looking for picks, because this composition from Pittsburgh Knights is better about zoning than the previous game. The great pick from Puch was a great zoning ultimate. Every time Neirumah goes in, that Puch ultimate prevents any follow-up. Even though there was a great pull onto EmilZy around that Fire Giant, no one could follow up because of that Puch ultimate.
Yeah, just a little bit too deep, too early, and then this turns around into Zyrhoes going ahead and finding the kill. And at this point, SK have a 4,000 gold lead. Still, here, 5,000. SK had commanded this game since their early Fire Giant kill. And then what happened was a lack of patience, I really think, is what's going on here for SK. I mean, are they too excited here, Tolly?
I think so. They had a great early game lead. I think their composition eventually faltered because the Vulcan pick yet again for Paul. I don't see the all-star highlight plays from Paul that I'm used to seeing in Season 5. I think this is time for them to adjust their strategies to get Paul in a more comfortable position, and maybe that's what they need to get comfortable in the late game, because so far their objective control on that portion just falls behind. And don't get me wrong, their objective control early game is great.
Sure.
They're able to control the Gold Furies. They got a 13-minute Fire Giant was SK Gaming, but their decision-making is starting to falter in that late.
Adapting, pulling out the spider here, 3-1-8 on the Arachne jungle. Love to see this, and what I really love here is this Magi's blessing in that, or the Magi cloak here in that third item slot. It's not because there's any particular CC that's offensive here. Maybe most notably the meatball. It's, and I say this about a couple of characters, it's there to make sure that her flow isn't disrupted.
That's right.
You need 3 hits to get the stun, and a lot of times you'll see tick, tick, and then she's interrupted somehow. This allows her to walk through that CC. It's just next level thinking on the build path.
You don't want to use your ultimate as Arachne as a CC escaper, right? So you use the Magi's Cloak instead. And when you're dealing with a Dodgy and then Morrigan for Belair, which had I have to say a pretty good game, a second Dodgy, it makes it more difficult for adapting, but he basically adjusted that very well with the Magi's Cloak. I like the pickup. I'm interested to see if the Vulcan switch gets into game number 3. I think it's time to move away from this Vulcan.
You know, it's interesting because I stand by what I said before. I don't think that the Vulcan is an issue inherently. I don't think there's a problem with the Vulcan god. But at the end of the day, if it's not working, you've got to move away from it. So as we look at Paul and we talk about his god pool, I always bring up Hebo. We always bring up Uller. The Hebo is consistently banned, and if we don't see it picked in the first phase, I think it will be continued to be banned. Do you see him going towards the Uller?
Possibly. Uller. Kronos, like he loves Kronos as well. That could be an option.
So we haven't seen any Ao Kuang, a character that's
another one.
Considered very strong. Ao Kuang jungle for Uller mid?
Keep in mind this is a best of 5. We could still see it as the games progress a little bit further. Adapting loves this god as well, so that could be in his back pocket.
I do love the idea of moving here to our 5-game series. Our 5-game series this is definitely a world where the meta can change, and now you've seen what SK has brought to the table multiple times. Well, get rid of the Vulcan, see if you can adapt and adjust. For Pittsburgh Knights, they've been behind the 8-ball for a number of games, and something that people have said is that this team is liable to tilt, that they're liable to kind of get at each other's throats because of so many egos or conflicting personalities. These are the types of games, if that's your stance, you would expect this team to lose.